All right, so now now that we've got the HTML kind of cobbled together here, we're going to take a look at the basics of adding visual styles, and this is done through a technology called Cascading Style Sheets, or CSS. So we'll take the HTML we have here, and we'll head up to the head section of the document. And this is this particular piece of software is very friendly in the sense that you mouse over a given element and it gives you a description of the tag and what the purpose of that tag might be. Anyway, so after the title, and it's important to note that in the head section, it's a good idea for performance reasons to keep the character encoding and the title close to the as close to the top of the document as you can. So we'll create a new line after the title. And here we want to create something called a style element. So we'll create style. I'll close that, and this very friendly editor, of course, knows that I've created a style start tag, and it creates an end of style start tag, which is very nice. So I'll create a couple of lines, hit enter a couple times, and then we're going to put some content inside the style tag. So once you've opened up a pair of style tags, the content that you then put inside those style tags is technically no longer HTML. So the content, the browser is expecting something a little different inside the style tags. What we put inside the style tags here is something called CSS. So I'm going to hit the Tab key just to keep things neat and tidy. And then I'm going to build a simple CSS rule that will control the display of the H1 element. So I want to change how that appears on my page visually. Right now it's in the base font, which is likely Times or Times New Roman. It's black and it's a certain size and it's boldface. So we can change that. So we're going to, first of all, to create a style rule, we start with something called a selector. And a selector simply indicates what HTML element or collection of elements we wish to style. In this case, I want to style the H1. So I just type H1 on its own, like so. Then I open up something called a brace, which is it's just over to the top right of your keyboard. You have to hit Shift, and it's some people call them curly brackets, but we open up a brace, and this particular editor closes that out for me, which is very nice. So this is the starting of our H1 rule in this case, and this brace here, closing brace, is the end of the rule. And in between these two start-stop structures, I'm going to type a number of what we call declarations. And a declaration consists of a visual property that I want to change and what I want to change it to. So in this case, I'm going to change the color. So I'll type color, and I'll add a colon. And after that, I can change I can use a keyword. There's many different ways to specify colors in CSS. You can use RGB or HSL or hexadecimal, but we'll simply use a keyword in this case, and I will say orange. And when I'm done with my property value pair, that declaration, I put a semicolon for the end of the line. So the syntax, as you can see, is a little different than HTML, but the two are related. So what this basically says is any HTML element on the page has these properties. In this case, it only has one property change, that is change the color to orange. So make sure you have what's highlighted in blue here in your document after the title element, but still within the confines of the start and end head tags. Okay, so this will style this. So we'll go ahead and go File, Save, and I'll proceed over to the browser. I'll reload the page, and you can see that the H1 is now orange. We can do more. So if I may want to affect more than one visual property for that particular element. So after the semicolon, I'll hit Enter, and I'll add a second, in this case, a second declaration. So maybe I don't want the font to be the base font, which is Times New Roman. Maybe I want to change that. So what I can do is I can type a property here called font-family, for example. And this is, you can put a list of different fonts that you'd rather use. In this case, I will, let's say we want to use Arial. Generally speaking, we put Arial and then a comma, and then if that font is not installed on the end user's machine, because we're relying on the fonts installed on that particular operating system, maybe we'll use Helvetica. And if that's not installed, not available, let's just grab any old sans serif type font. So add that particular declaration. Notice when we're spelling out font names, they should be in title case, so exactly the way they appear in your font system. They're separated by commas. We could just put, if I really wanted to keep things simple, I can simply just do this and say, just grab any old sans serif font, which is without where Times New Roman would be considered a serif font. We'll save that. File save, and then we'll proceed over to the browser, reload the page, and you can see this is now in a different font. I'll do one more quick change here. Let's change the size. So we'll say font-size, and there are many different ways of specifying sizes for fonts in CSS. You can use inches, centimeters, pixels, picas, and the list goes on. But what we'll do is we'll use something called, we'll just use percentage. So we'll say 250%. So this is saying make it 2.5 times what it would otherwise, how it would otherwise be sized. File save. Head over to our browser, reload the page, and you can see that's quite a bit bigger than it otherwise would be. And similarly, we can style other things. We can style our paragraph. So after this is considered to be within the style sheet. This here would be one rule. So there may be other pieces of HTML that I want to style. What if I'd like to change the appearance of the paragraph? So I would go here, I would create a new line and select or build a selector P. So this says any and all paragraph elements. Open up with a brace, close the brace, and now we have inside these two braces, I can put in some more declarations which control visual properties for paragraphs. So let's change the color of the paragraphs, let's say to, say gray, okay? See that changes accordingly. Let's increase the font size, font-size, and let's set it at let's say 200%. Quite a bit bigger. Now the interesting thing about CSS too is we don't always have to put all of the styles on every single element. Sometimes we have something, the CSS features something called a cascade. That's why it's called cascading style sheets. So, a certain property, if you apply it to one element, will inherit across all of these elements. So let's just say, for example, I wanted to center all of the content on this page, right? So what I can do is instead of saying text-align center on the H1, on the image, and on the paragraph, what I can do is I can look to the parent element. In this case, this is the body. And I can say, let's center everything inside the body. So we'll go in up here in the style sheet, and I'll create a rule for the body. And I'll say text-align. Center, make sure you spell that the American way rather than the Canadian way. So add that particular CSS rule before the one for the primary heading for the H1. I'll save. And now you can see that by applying that to the parent element, which is the body, the H1, the image, and the paragraph have all now aligned in the center of the page. So there's a quick primer on CSS, cascading style sheets. And next up, we're going to take a look at how I can add some interaction to the page using JavaScript.